Welcome to the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. I am the host, Attorney John Khosravi, and I practice U.S. immigration law exclusively. For more information about the program, please visit www.immigrationlawyerspodcast.com. Please note that this recording is informational only and does not constitute legal advice. Please consult with a licensed attorney for specific legal guidance that suits your case. Also, this recording is copyrighted and written permission is required for rebroadcasting. For more information about me, please visit www.jqqlaw.com.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome to episode 126 of the Immigration Lawyers Podcast. And what a time it's been since the last time I talked with you guys. I mean, the world turned upside down. It's day, I don't know what, of quarantine. Today's March 20th, Friday night. I'm recording this. I mean, when I did the New Year's episode, recapping what happened last year, I didn't expect to almost go to war with Iran. And then, the most dangerous thing in life being just walking down the street in America. But so here we are in 2020, and we're just getting started with spring, and that's what's happening. Well, happy Persian New Year to everyone. Persian New Year is really the first day of spring, so it's like the new year for humanity, mankind. It's an agricultural-based New Year because that's when plants start giving flowers, a lot of food crops start happening, animals have babies, so it's a new start. And so it's unfortunate to have the start to be something so catastrophic as the global pandemic, but that's what we're going through right now. Hopefully it's not as bad as they say and it's going to blow over. But for now, I've been quarantined at home. For me, the reality is, because I work from home, I've been quarantined at home for years now. But the style I've done it, I'm glad so many of our practitioners are doing it now because everyone has to work from home because of the lockdowns, that they're doing online kind of stuff, doing video consultations, going to the cloud to store their info. And what happens is instead of spending money on commercial leases, just get a bigger house and enjoy that. So last September we moved to a much bigger place. It has a big backyard, so I could just go in my backyard, hang out. It's been raining in Los Angeles, so it's not been good. But kids have place to run, have different rooms in the house, different office spaces, and it makes it much more palatable as opposed to having just a small place. I don't know how people in New York could make it. Like if the typical New York place is so small, that would be so frustrating to live a place like that. But let's just start with business, I guess. So everything's pretty much starting to shut down globally with everything. But in the immigration space, USCIS canceled all in-person appointments till April 1st and biometrics as well. Department of State is shutting down most of its embassies abroad. That's closing out. They're telling Americans to come back home. Countries are shutting their doors. I think you can't even go to Canada anymore if you're American. Canada's just closing up in general. Apparently cargo and stuff's moving, keep the logistics alive, but I think Mexico's going to have the same situation popping up. EOIR has been the rigid one that hasn't slowly been changing, but I think they're shutting down one by one, and it's about to happen. But it's really hard because it's such a difficult place to go to, and it's like so easy to get sick there. For people who practice in the immigration court, they're usually reconverted apartments or something like that are so small. I don't know what's going on. And it's so uncomfortable and you're so close to everybody. It's really a scary place to be when you're dealing with something like the coronavirus and how that works. And it's a weird place, weird situation to go on. I heard that video of Cardi B, and I'm not a fan of Cardi B. I think I'm getting old. I just can't understand how she's famous and has a music career. But God bless her. I mean, she's making money, but she keeps saying like coronavirus. So one thing I have is when I hear something catchy, I start talking like that too. So you might hear me say coronavirus when I'm talking about coronavirus. So be prepared for that. All right, let's get to immigration agencies. So USCIS. So there's a lot going on. A lot of my notes are pre-coronavirus stuff. So bear with me. We're going to go through that stuff. It's really for practitioners, if you will. So a lot of stuff I've been seeing that's popping up that's really peculiar from colleagues or people that call me and ask. Like one colleague was worried about their adjustment interview for a marriage case because when the client went to the ASC appointment center to do the biometrics, they took pictures of the guy's body tattoos as well. And I'm like, when? I mean, what? Why would they do something like that? It's so peculiar. I haven't heard what happened with that case, but you don't go with your clients usually to a biometric appointment because it makes sense. But that's one of those cases, you probably one out of a million that you want your lawyer there to say like, hey, there's no need to take pictures of my tattoos. It's not your place. You're here to take my fingerprints and take a picture of my face. And so that's about it. It's a very peculiar situation. I'm not sure what's going on with that. And then another situation that's popping up. There's a lot of situations that are popping up. So one thing for years I've been really a stickler about, even though it wasn't enforced, is for naturalization. They go over all these stuff in your background for good moral character. One of the questions that they ask is if you've ever obtained a public benefit with misrepresentation or fraud. Now, typically that question goes to immigration fraud in the past and things that needed 601 waivers. But a public benefit could be things like getting money from the government or subsidized housing and the like. However, if you got your green card based on like a family-based case and you have an I-864 sponsor or a joint sponsor, in their paperwork it does list the fact that the sponsor's income could be included as your household income for means tested benefits. So if you get some sort of benefit, don't include their income, then that's a violation. That's benefits fraud right there. And so a colleague in Boston had posted that his client went to interview. The officer asked how much you pay in rent. It was a nominal figure. He's like, how's that possible? He's like, well, I get subsidized housing or Section 8 or whatever they call it. And he's like, well, you've been sponsored by your U.S. citizen daughter. Did you list her income when you requested that application? And he said no, which he should have, because if he did, then his income level would have been too high to get the subsidies or the payments or help from the government, so not allowing to get that benefit. So they issued a notice of intent to deny, saying that was an issue, benefit fraud. And when they posted online, about 50 people said, "What? Public charge isn't up yet. This is crazy. Sue them." But this is not a public charge issue at all. This is benefits fraud, and something that they never enforce, because for years I've been seeing cases get proved like that. But that's part of the game for the Trump administration to start paying attention to this. So that's a question to ask really from clients. A lot of people get food stamps when they're without including the household income, and you can't get food stamps because if you include your petitioner's income or joint sponsor's income, immediately you're making too much to be able to get those benefits. So that's something to be very careful of. You don't want someone to go to their NATS interview, not only get the NATS denied, but then come back and have go into removal proceedings and lose the green card. So that was a crazy situation. Another colleague said they had an N400 case where the person went for the exemption from the language requirement, and in the doctor's note, they mentioned that the guy used to be a big drinker and that's affected his health and all that kind of stuff, and so it was denied for public being a drunkard or something like that. So you got to be careful what's in there and definitely read what the doctor's writing. That never go blindfolded into an interview, whether it's for a NATS exemption of the language requirement or if you're doing a medical a civil surgeon record. You got to see everything. Unfortunately, you can't get access to that medical panel for DOS immigrant visa interviews, but know as much as you can. Never minimize how blind you are where your client is going into an interview. And one quick note, I was supposed to talk about this first when I get started, is I've been very active on the Facebook page for Immigration Lawyers Toolbox and doing regular live videos that are shorter and just tidbits of practice tips to help you in marketing and business and immigration law. So if you are an immigration lawyer, reach out and I'll connect you on that page so you can be a part of it. The group's getting more and more active, so it's a lot of fun. So I definitely recommend doing that. Now, our colleague Ron Klasko of the Klasko Law Firm filed a great H-1B lawsuit. And he won, and one of the basis of the win was, for H-1B you have to be a specialized knowledge employee. Maybe I should put this part in the court section, maybe instead of USCIS, but whatever. So for categorization of a job, if it's specialized knowledge or not, or if a degree is needed for that job, they frequently reference ONET, which lists is a website of the government that lists like what the jobs are and what the expected degrees are and what you're doing and that kind of stuff. And the government, the court in, I think it was Washington District Court or something like that, did an excellent analysis and said, the USCIS is abusing the standard right here, because ONET just says normally a person has like a bachelor's degree, and they're substituting the word normally as always, or and so they're making a higher standard, which is abuse of discretion. If a majority of the time, a strong majority of the degree is required, then it's required. They don't have to make up their own standards like that. So that's wonderful. I love it when I see stuff like that. Let's see, AAO. So, there's more and more stats coming. I'm going to go through a lot of the statistics in this episode of these and stuff. But the AAO appeal adjudication chart had a breakdown of what the O's and P approvals were on the AAO, and almost 0% of the O's and P's were sustained since fiscal year 2015. So in the last 4 or 5 years, zero O's and P's approved on appeal. So you got to make sure not to appeal to AAO when you have an O or P denied. You're just wasting time and money. Either you refile or you go to district court if you could do that. But going to AAO on O and P is like a fool's errand. Now, I was surprised by a large number of I-129s that were sustained, so that was good. And there was a massive increase in H-1B AAO applications in 2019. So it's a really interesting thing that to watch out for and see what things are happening. So some stuff does work on AAO, but at this point, if you could, just go and sue, especially because they're changing the AAO. There was a regulation update where they're going to really strip the AAO of any benefit it has to the applicant. So they're going to see ability to waive the initial field review process. They're going to do that. They're limiting de novo review. So before, AAO would look over everything from new. Now they're getting rid of that. It's only things that were argued. And they're limiting new evidence on appeal. So before AAO, sometimes you could throw in stuff in there that wasn't there in your national application. They'll review it, but they're just literally putting out there that they're not going to accept new evidence. So things are really difficult and making the AAO less and less something you want to use. Let's see. So what else happened? So I had to call the USCIS hotline because I have this one adjustment case that's just lingering. It's not getting to an interview. And now that they're canceling interviews, this poor guy's stuck. But client's really frustrated. So I keep calling them and doing service requests. And I'll call, and I wait like 30 days to call back because I don't get any responses from them. And this time I called after the 30th day, and the person said, oh, no, it's not 30 regular days. It's 30 business days now. And I'm not sure if that's true or not. And I was about to argue with her, but I was like, I'll just call back again, and I'm going to call back again. But they're saying it's 30 business days now to contact them on the USCIS hotline. So that's the situation with that. And quick note, premium processing just got shut down. Coronavirus attacking again. But on the bright side, and this is really good, they've shut down the wet ink signature requirement for forms temporarily while the coronavirus is happening. Now, if you're doing marriage cases and you need passport photos, that issue is going to still exist. I can't figure out how to print passport photos with my printer. If I could, that'd be wonderful. So it just completely takes away the need to interact with the clients in person. Everything could be done digitally. Also, their asylum said no more picking up decisions. They'll mail it to you. So that's good, but we'll see what happens with that. And also, right now, a biometrics appointment notice for people that were on the mad dash to file adjustment cases before public charge came in, they're just now getting the biometrics appointment notices. So you definitely want to inform your clients that the notice you get, if it's before April 1st to appear, don't do that. It's canceled. And most likely, it's just going to keep being canceled until they figure the situation out, which who knows how long that's going to be. Now, for those who use online systems, I don't, but if you use an online, by online systems, I mean use USCIS online, they've opened it up so you can file Form I-130 online. However, Form I-130A isn't there, and a colleague, Parviz Malkudian, told me what you have to do is, at the end of the I-130, it says if you want any attachments or something, and then you complete I-130 and you upload it. So it's something like that, so be prepared for that situation. Another colleague, Steve Laddick, said that the P1 validity period for individual athletes with reoccurring annual schedules is only published 1 year at a time. So sometimes there's these athletes that have annual events that happen on P1s, and it only gets published when the next one is for the first 5 years. And he's been having 5 years when things repeat themselves over and over again. They would let it just go, but now they're being more strict and saying you need to show that it's like continuous for 5 years and have an criteria specific for the 5-year period. But the reality is, like, when it's going to repeat, why they don't plan it that ahead of time and specific time. So these are like the headaches that are happening with different types of cases. Another colleague said that they had filed an I-751 removal of conditions, a couple, and then they wanted to convert it to a waiver at the interview. So they came, handed it to the officer at the interview saying we're a waiver now. And the officer said we can't accept that because no fee was submitted. So, is a fee required when you're going to change your I-751 from a bona fide marriage, duly signed I-751 to a waiver-based I-751? I don't know. I didn't think that was needed, but, be careful. This was in the Honolulu field office, apparently. But there's other people that have seen this scenario in other places like Massachusetts, too. Another gift from the administration is they've updated the NATS manual, naturalization manual, in the public policy, in the USCIS policy manual. And so when we're going through eligibility for residency, based on the 5-year residency or 3 years if you're not in marriage, they're reimagining the break in continuous residence. So if you have more than a year of absence in the U.S., you typically would wait 4 years and 1 day to kind of reset the clock to be able to submit the application without having a break in continuous residence. But now they're saying, okay, if you wait 4 years and 1 day, that's fine, but you still have, that chunk of 6 months, more than 6 months, but less than 1 year where you weren't here. And you also have to now prove that you didn't, break the residence during that 6 month to 1 year period. So essentially now you have to wait 4 years and 6 months before you could apply. And even then, who knows? So probably much wait the full 5 years and reset the clock. But that's what we're dealing with right now. Now, the policy manual was updated. The coronavirus situation said anything goes with fingerprints right now. You should really look at the webpage for USCIS.gov on that. But they delineated, they said that copies of signatures are okay. It has to be ink copy, but a copy of signatures is okay. So I was really happy about that. But a colleague, Ari Sauer, referenced that although it says that certain specific forms still require that it be an original wedding signature, and photocopies aren't okay. So when you're looking at Form I-129, for example, you need to have an original signature. Form I-140. Another one which is interesting, Form I-539, change of status or extension of status. The pre-public charge version, pre-October 15 version, the instructions specifically said that photocopies of ink signatures are okay. But when they updated the form for public charge, they also updated instructions, and they said it's not. And the way they talk about signatures on the instructions, there's 3 different parts that talk about signatures in different pages. It's not just one. And in one of them, it says like, a photocopy of ink signature is not okay. So it's just messing around for people to make mistakes. And it's such a hassle. What difference does it make to have an ink signature nowadays? I mean, it's just such a joke. But these are the hassles we have to deal with. They also said that the attorney or credit representative of the benefit requestor cannot serve as an interpreter during an interview. And the footnote says officers cannot make exceptions for good cause. So that absolutely a lawyer cannot act as a translator during the interview. Another thing, IJ finds grant of TPS renders INA 245C bars inapplicable to employment-based adjustment status of grant. So that was very interesting. There's a lot of stuff happening with TPS, which is interesting. There's another case I think the East Coast that happened. So in this case, there's some judge, immigration judge, said that 245C, which is when you're adjusting status, and there's certain bars to be able to adjust status because of certain violations. And it's saying the TPS renders that moot and kind of resets the clock so you could do INA 245K. So let's say you're here, you did a violation here, then you get TPS. You could then file for adjustment because TPS is admission and in the certain jurisdictions. And then 245K forgives, after you file TPS, it's like an admission, you're here lawfully, so you're not accumulating lawful presence there, but you've had past unlawful presence violations. So normally you couldn't adjust, but if you're doing employment-based EB 123, INA 245K forgives previous violations. So they let that go now. So that was a really cool thing that happened. But one bad thing with TPS I've been seeing is some offices don't consider advanced parole as entry. So imagine you have TPS, you get advanced parole, you go and come back. That advanced parole can't be the basis of an adjustment in many cases because their interpretation is that when you leave, when you lost status, then got TPS, and then you left and came back, you revert back to the status you had, which is nothing. It's some sort of crazy analysis I was seeing. It's ridiculous, but it's been happening more and more. So just be mindful if someone does have advanced, they're out of status and they get something with advanced parole and come back in, there's going to be an issue with regards to status. So just be mindful. Sorry, it's late night. I remember, and I wrote this like 2 weeks ago. I can't remember, but definitely reach out if you have questions about that. I did for the premium version of Immigration Law Toolbox, I did a video on that, and I've discussed it on the Facebook page for Immigration Law Toolbox too. And also, Yemen TPS was extended to September 3rd, 2021. All right, so Department of State kind of stuff. Department of State, I mean, they're just canceling interviews right now. It's a mess. So we're seeing what's happening. Now, the public charge came. Interestingly, they haven't really been enforcing it or requesting Form DS 5540, but that's coming. So prepare that. That's the public charge form that they have, which is much simpler than the I-944. So in some cases, it might be just better to do that. But to start off, AAO had his liaison meeting with the quarterly with Department of State. So there were some nuggets of stuff in there. It was interesting. So the London Embassy and their fact sheet for immigrant visa interviews saying they require a medical summary to be brought with the person to the interview. And I think it's even on their website. So then people asked the DOS and said, well, why is that? And the DOS says, we have no awareness of that. And we reached out to London. They don't know either. Apparently, London doesn't look at their own website. So that's that. They also referenced they may be taking away, just delineating that in the FAM that the E2 visas don't have a mandatory need for physical space. So that's going to be interesting that they're doing that. It's very interesting. We'll see what happens with that. Another thing that people ask, do you need to list tickets when they ask about, criminal history? And they said it's a case-by-case basis because they had an example where they said in Virginia, if you're driving more than 20 miles per hour above the speed limit, that's a misdemeanor for reckless driving or something like that. So if you get a misdemeanor, you do. But some places 20 miles per hour is an infraction, so it's not. So it's a case-by-case basis and something to look at. Another thing that's very frustrating, I can't believe they said that, is AAO members complain that when you contact certain embassies for the U.S. travel docs emails that they have, instead of going directly to the embassy you're contacting, it gets reverted to some third country embassy, and they respond saying, you're contacting the wrong spot. And they're like, we've never heard about this. But that's not true. I've contacted various Department of State officials over the last 10 years because this issue happens to me a lot, and it's super aggravating. And the fact that they're saying we never heard about it, it's just mind-blowing and really ridiculous. But, if you've been following my social media pages for Immigration Toolbox, you've been seeing the updates for various visa reciprocity charts. So if you wanted to see what's going on, there's so much new information that comes out every day. But on my LinkedIn pages, my Facebook page for Immigration Toolbox, I keep track of the visa reciprocity changes and what stuff's happening. It's major changes happening with shorter visa stays, more expensive visa stays. It's kind of crazy. It makes it not worth it for certain visa categories to even do it with the high cost of it or the short number of times multiple entry becomes single entry, all this kind of stuff. It really takes away from a lot of the need, the practicality of having a U.S. visa. Now, the MVC is giving confirmation emails when you submit case status. How should I put it? The MVC used to have it where you could just email them and they would help us, but that stopped. And so now we have to go to the public communication page within the Department of State website when you're contacting the MVC. And what sucked about it is you would press send and then the page would just flip off and that was it. And you're like, okay, what's going on? So now they said, and I haven't seen it myself, a colleague, because I haven't done it in a while. When's the last time I did it? But a colleague said now they're giving confirmation emails. So once you click it, they will send you a confirmation email. So it's really good because you need that. Another case, a B2 case here. Brazil canceled because spouse of USC filed for months. Oh yeah, so it's interesting. That case is not an issue, but this stuff pops up. So there was a person from Brazil, got married, had I-130 pending for 4 months, and on a B2 wanted to enter the United States, and at the port, CB said, "Oh, Department of State canceled your visa because you had an I-130 pending." So that's kind of crazy. Clients always ask, "Can I travel on a B1, B2?" Historically, I always say no, don't do that because it's risky. But I had so many clients that just didn't listen to me, and they ended up flying into the U.S. without issue. That I said, "Okay, do it. Just have a return ticket. Be honest. Really have the intent to go back, and that we're going to do National Visa Center processing, consular processing. Don't quit your job. Just live your life, and it's usually okay." But that's that. Now, one big thing is SEAC, the website where you upload documents to, and you could also check to see what's going on, the status post-immigrant visa interview. Used to have a thing where they would say administrative processing when they keep suspending, but they changed it to refused, and so that scared the hell out of a lot of people a week or two ago, and you probably got a lot of calls about it. But that's something that was happening. We also saw huge retrogression in EV3 category, which worldwide, which sucked. I had an interview we went in like on March 6th, expecting it to be current because it's been current for so long for EV3. And after the interview, the officer was like, well, this is retrogression, went back 3 years. So I'm like, oh, snap. Like, that sucks. And so the guy's just waiting for that to go through. Okay, so the Department of State updated the public charge with DS 5540. Look at FAM 9302.8. They're supposed to notify people that have visa interviews pending that this change is happening to bring the form with them, but who knows what's going on right now. One interesting thing is, so one client, well, not my client, but one colleague said they had a client that went to the panel physician, and the panel physician made the determination that their child had autism, and that autism determination became a public charge issue, and they were denied. So I was like, as a panel physician, have the ability to judge whether someone has autism or not, because it could just be a really kid. But he said it was kind of obvious, and it was extreme version of autism. But that sucks right there. That's just such a nightmare for something like that to happen. Okay, so I'm gonna go through some statistics, and the point of these statistics I'm gonna go over is to really open your mind up to how you're marketing, what groups you're marketing to. Whereas with what's going on right now, and I said on my Facebook page, and it's kind of scary, but the reality is it's 100% certain we're going to go into a deep recession, maybe even a depression right now because of the financial situation. You can't shut down half the globe for months on end without having severe repercussions. And I feel bad for people. I have the flexibility to just work from home, still make a good living. Who knows how long people could pay me, but for now, things are working well consistently. But there's people that really on a day-to-day basis have to leave the house, and they're just barely making enough to pay rent and maybe have health insurance. Who knows? And those people are going to go through some real tough times right now. But I can't help everybody, but I want to help you, and you're my colleague, you're my community. You really got to think about things in a clear way about marketing and how you're getting business out there. Because the reality is, even down economies, certain people become really rich, and certain people do really well. It doesn't have to be you that does the bad part. In one of these Facebook groups, a person was lamenting that they're so worried that their office is getting hit so much, and all these people then started lamenting as well, saying, "Yeah, it's so bad," or my firm never even got started. It's just so never working out. And I went one by one, and I started looking up each of these people on Google and seeing what kind of online marketing he had. And it was 0 to 5% of like what they should do. And so I'm like, how are you lamenting and crying and worried about layoffs and not making money when you don't even bother doing the easy stuff? It's free, most of this online stuff. So just to let you know, the marketing training programs I have with the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox and the Champions for Freedom program to literally, buy your freedom so you don't have to deal with this stuff. You could be at home hanging out too like this and doing good work. And reaching out and making connections across the globe. I have the program that I finished the video series for the most part, so you could get that video series, or come along with it is one-on-one training and stuff. Just email me info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com, and we'll have a call to discuss what's needed. Because what I do is, when you contact me with something like this, I look into seeing if you need my service or not. I do my own research on you. Acting as a consumer to see what's going on. And if I feel like, you may need maybe a couple hours of help, or maybe you need no help at all, I'll let you know. But most, I would say like 90% of immigration lawyers have awful, terrible online marketing and media presence. So it's like, it's so easy to boost it up and increase your revenue dramatically. So just reach out, and now is the time, because, things are, in one sense, going to hell in the handbasket. But on the other end, you have a captive audience. Everyone's at home. And what do they do when they're at home? They're on the internet. So you have, this word of mouth stuff's not going to work. They're not going to call their friend to see if they know immigration law. They're just going to go online because the computer's right there. That's all people are going to be doing right now. So if you have the presence online, you're going to soak it up. You just got to know how to do it right, not to waste time and money. I see so many people hiring firms, paying them like $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a month. A year just to start getting some clients. I'm like, you don't need to pay any of that to somebody. You just do it yourself. You just got to know how to just pay once or something like that. Learn the tools, and then have a community to help you, to support you, which is myself and the groups I'm making. And then just keep pushing it. Have a presence online and become the guru for what you're doing. So to help with that, one thing I'm doing now is the Department of State releases visa statistics every month of what's going on, what kind of visas they're giving. And I'm spending time, analyzing what countries are doing what, so I have a better idea of what countries to market to, what's going on. So a lucrative market is the E2 treaty investor market. And so like I'm looking at the December numbers and the January numbers, how it's going. And, Japan is the powerhouse when it comes to E2. They're the number one group that does E2 visas. Now, I'm assuming a lot of them are employee type E2s, not necessarily like the investors themselves. But Japan in total has had different embassies. That's 2 or 3 different consulates that approve them. But in December, it had 1,205 E2s, and in January, it had 848. So there's going to be some ups and downs that happen. It's generally lower in January than it was in December. It's going to be very interesting to see visa numbers in February and March. That's going to be like close to zero probably because they're shutting down embassies. So that's going to be interesting too. And that's a problem because now, for example, if you had a majority E2 visa business, I mean, they could do change of status in the United States, or you could be prepping it on the side anyways. But with the downturn economy, a lot of people are probably turning around. So that's why it's good to be niche, but have 1 or 2 niches. So I do E2s and Ls, but I also do like marriage cases, and I also do training, and also spend my time learning how to do investment, all this kind of stuff. And the key is to have the free time, do different things, and become experts at those. So Canada was number 2, both last month in December and in January, 353 in December. 445 E2s in January. And then in December, the next one, number 3, was in Germany. But Germany lost its spot to number 4 in January, and South Korea came up. So South Korea is number like 6 or 7. So when you go down the country list that are typically in the top 10, you got Japan, Canada, South Korea, Germany, Great Britain, Ireland, Mexico, Italy, France, and Spain. Those are the E2 countries that do volume. Now, you could be a niche. Back when Iran had E2s, I would do E2s from Iran, and those would work and stuff. Now they're shut down. So there are countries that have 10 E2s a month or 5. And, if you get one of those and you charge a really good number, it doesn't matter. But just there's these countries that have like volumes that they're doing much larger. And so, why not go where the pond is bigger? There's a lot more fish in there. And when the embassies that I said, it's like Tokyo, Osaka, Kobe. Those are the big ones that do a lot of visas. Seoul in South Korea, Frankfurt, CDJ has got a good number. It's interesting, Mexico. But those are the stats when it comes to E2 visas. Very interesting to see the ups and downs on that. Now, F1 student visas, a couple of notes. I was surprised. China is the big one. In December, they had 7,000 F1 student visas. But in January, it went down drastically to 2,918. This is mainland China. But Brazil had 1,082 the previous month, and in January had 504. So January is generally a downtime, it seems, with regards to most these visa categories. Now, in January, we get to like tourist visas. I thought this was interesting. Mexico has barely any actual tourist visas, B1, B2s issued. They have like 1,000 to 1,500, but they have like 100,000 to 110,000 those border crossing cards. So that's what they just give Mexicans. If a Mexican goes to the U.S. Embassy, they're not going to issue a B1, B2 tourist visa. They're just going to give a border crossing card, which is problematic because most people don't know how to use a border crossing card properly. That's a discussion for another time what that means. So big countries that do tourist visas, Argentina, Brazil, China, India, Mexico, Nigeria, Venezuela. Actually, I added Nigeria, Venezuela in this list just to see with the increased scrutiny and stuff how the numbers are happening. But essentially, Mexico's large number, China's large number, India, Brazil, and Argentina. Those are the big number of countries that get a lot of tourist visas to come to the United States. So, okay, I'm moving on to ICE right now. Just a couple of quick notes. They said because of coronavirus, they're going to stop going to hospitals and doing a lot of their stuff. We'll see what happens. Because 2 weeks earlier, ICE officers apparently have been deployed to flood the streets of sanctuary cities, the report said. Now, a really messed up thing is apparently these children that are being held would have therapy with counselors, and the counselors would take notes, and these notes were then, what was thought was confidential notes, were then used against them in their hearings, which is really messed up. And also, this is even more messed up. The National Archives is letting millions of documents, including many related to immigrants' rights, be destroyed or deleted. So a lot of the ICE archives are being destroyed so no one could go back to see what they were doing. That's just like crazy that they do that. Now, CBP. So CBP is a very, first of all, I want to give them respect. They're at the front line of dealing with people coming to this country with potential, coronavirus problems. And, I've heard TSA people getting sick. I haven't heard numbers from CBP, but they must be feeling it. But what's happening is they're not necessarily quarantining people. They lessened the airports that accept foreign travelers. I think there's like 10 of them now. And when it first happened, it was crazy. There's photos of it at the airport where there's like, 10,000, I don't know the numbers, but it was just people cram packed. It's just a petri dish of of coronavirus disease that's going on there. So I was really sad to see that, and the officers have to deal with that. But they're not really quarantining people. They just tell them, go in, and if you feel like getting sick, self-quarantine and stuff like that. So that's the situation that was happening there. The big thing about people just being able to come here, because there's a ban now from Europe and Iran and China, people who visit those countries. But even people who are exempt from this having a hard time getting here. One is the airlines are afraid to board them. Secondly, flights are being canceled. And third, the ESTA program is being canceled for people who have them. So if you have a spouse of a U.S. citizen and wants to come visit, the ESTA might be canceled. So they should really check on that before trying to come here. It's a really difficult thing. Now, they also said Border Patrol will be deploy elite tactical agents to sanctuary cities. So they're using ICE and CBP officers and sanctuary cities as tactical officers. I'm like, damn, that's some crazy stuff. But on some good news, on the freedom front, Greyhound Bus said they'll no longer consent to warrantless searches by Border Patrol agents on their buses. So that's excellent. And on the sad side, a CBP employee was killed, his wife and 2 sons before fatally shooting himself, murder-homicide. Murder-suicide. It's a sad situation. But one note I wanted to talk about with regards to CBP, I got contact from a person who wanted a consultation. So the situation was that a woman entered the airport, was denied entry and sent back 5-year expedited removal. And what happened is she had come with her tourist visa and had a 2-year-old U.S. citizen son. And so they asked, well, how's your son a U.S. citizen? Were they born here? Obviously, they said, yeah, they were born here. And they said, well, when did you get your tourist visa? And they said, well, I got it a few months before I came in. And like, well, were you pregnant then when in your interview? She's like, yeah, I was 3 months pregnant. She's like, did you tell them? She said, no. Like, okay, so when you came here, how did you pay for the hospital? They're like, well, I didn't. The hospital paid for herself. The government paid for it and left. And she's like, well, did you reimburse them? They said, no. So they gave her expedited removal based on the generic thing of not having the proper documents. But cooked in that removal is a potential misrepresentation to the DOS, potential benefits fraud, public charge issues. It's chock full of stuff that are problematic because the person that they expedited removal had 2 ways to do consular processing later through U.S. citizen brother and green card holding parents. But they're going to have to get a waiver. Luckily, they have a LPR parent, so there's a waiver category there open for them. But the public charge rule doesn't necessarily have a waiver, so they can still get him on that. So it's like it's messed up. So be careful, watch out. They're going to call you on this stuff. So now I'm going to end it with 2 things. So this is all over the place. MPP, the thing with policy where they're sending people to wait in Mexico before they come to the U.S. We're closing the border down now, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. But there was like a back and forth of saying it was shut down, but then Supreme Court reopened it, allowed it to happen. I think it's still happening right now. But another case, district court, I think it was, said Cuccinelli, who was temporarily the head of USCIS, was incorrectly chosen in that spot. So the decisions they made potentially are going to be thrown out. There's 1 or 2 of them, specific, I think, asylum-related rules that were put in place that were thrown out because the judge said he didn't have the authority to issue those. But the rest of them remain. A big one is the public charge rule. So if that gets thrown out, that's going to throw a big hamper to reset that. All that's going to be a mess. Then another, I'll end with this. A federal judge in Maryland has banned immigration officials from arresting, detaining, and deporting immigrants who are seeking legal status based on their marriage to U.S. citizens. So, as you know, you go to an I-130 interview, and this is a person that's going to do an I-601A waiver to go do consular processing, and the ICE officers will be waiting outside the door to pick them up. And it's like, well, we're coming to do I-130s because we are going to go buy the book and leave and come back in. We're going to do a waiver. Why do this kind of trick kind of stuff? And so a judge said that's ridiculous in Maryland. So that was very nice that happened. So that's it for this agency recap for, I think, January and February. I lined it up a little bit because there's just so much lined up in the sense that I didn't talk about everything that happened because there's just a lot going on in immigration at any time. But, life is an interesting thing. It just makes you really focus on what you need to do. And what I got to say is, just focus right now. Think about where you want to be in a year or 2 and just keep focusing on that and build towards it. So you don't get caught up in the day-to-day grind of the statistics of how many people got sick, how many people died, is it young people dying, is it old people dying. That kind of stuff is going to break you down mentally. And so what you just focus on, and I'm focusing on, and work with me and join the toolbox is how could we become better immigration attorneys? How can we know the law better? How can we develop our practice and our business sense better, make more money so then we can support ourselves, our family, our community, and not be caught up in a lot of the things that are happening in society. And, have a position of respect in the community so we could give back and then institute and push our values, which is camaraderie, brotherhood, sisterhood, and care and love for one another and support without having some overlord telling us what to do. If I got a lot of money, then I could pay for someone's health insurance. I don't need, some big brother coming to pay for it from the government side or all this kind of stuff. You can support themselves in the way that you need. When I go to restaurants, I could tip in 50%. Why take 10 or 20%? Any little thing you can. So that's the key right there, to make yourself as strong as possible, put yourself in a position that's very strong, and then you can build and bring people up with you. I hope that information helped. Just email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox if you want information to connect on the Facebook page, and if you want to learn about the Champions for Freedom program to take your practice to the next level and just really put yourself out there so that people will know about you and get those cases, especially the good low-hanging fruit, which is the best. The cases that are good money, not extremely complicated, cool clients that are really nice, so they can support you in your endeavors, so you could have secondary avenues of earning incomes with the spare time you have on those good paying clients, and then to double down and become a better immigration attorney as well. Spend that time to study and all that. I'm going to be having a new L1A corner, a recap of AAO cases published soon for the Immigration Lawyers Toolbox for members. The fee was going to go up to $50, but I'll maintain it for $35 if you contact me soon, $35 a month. But the marketing masterclass I have, along with the L1A corner, all this kind of stuff, you're going to make much more money than that just to join it. So get in quick before the price pops up. I guess that's it, everyone. I wish you all health, and you and your families, and to get over this crisis as soon as possible, and we come on the other end much stronger and refocus on what's important in life and how to make ourselves, our community, and our country a much better place. Until next one, have a good one.